Welcome to your Six-Figure Mentor. I'm here in San Jose and I'm at a mentoring conference joined by a 3-time World Series champion, Todd Stottlemyre. He's an accomplished athlete with a 15-year career as well as an accomplished businessman. Also with us is his lovely wife, Erica, who I follow avidly on Instagram, and it's great to have you guys finally.
Thank you.
So Todd has come out with a recent book. It's actually should be available today, the day that I post this vlog. It's called Relentless Success. It's a 9-point system for major league achievement. So, and it's applicable to not just business, but all of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just read through the majority of this book this morning and I was riveted. It's hard to put down. In the early part of your career, you were known to kind of lose it, but very competitive, active anger.
So, Eugene, first of all, great to be here with you, number one. But yeah, I didn't kind of lose it. I would lose it, and you know, I was a very emotional player and pitcher, and so when I faced confrontation on the field, sometimes I responded to the confrontation with massive aggression.
I want to thank our manager, Cito Gaston, because when he gave the ball to me in Game 4, the mayor of Philly was trying to figure out how this guy was going to beat us because he felt like he can hit me. I got one message for the mayor of Philly, and I hope you're out there looking. You can kiss my
Sometimes that massive aggression and that movement and all of that emotion was an asset and a liability, and it became a liability when I crossed the line. And we had times where I crossed the line.
Yeah, okay. So in the book, actually chapter 3, which is one of my favorites, you actually talk about where all of that anger and aggression came from. Can you talk a little bit of that and how that became your why?
For sure. So, actually, when my little brother Jason was 7, he was diagnosed with leukemia, and I was 11 at the time. It was around Christmas time, and so the family's Christmas present that year was that my little brother had leukemia, and we got right into treatments, and he did all the chemotherapy and all the spinal taps and everything that you have to do to fight you know, this god-awful disease called cancer, and he went into remission. It was about a year later, the leukemia had attacked his body again, and it was back to the same old thing, treatments and this and that. And then he went back into remission, and this time it attacked his body actually for a 3rd time. And the doctors had deemed at that time that his only real shot at long-term survival was a successful bone marrow transplant. So all of our family, all the members of our family, my mother, father, my other brother, my older brother, Mel Jr., we all went in for blood tests. My blood matched his blood perfectly. And so I gave him a bone marrow transplant, and it was the hope and prayer that it was going to give him that chance for long-term survival. His body rejected my marrow, but early on, after the transplant, it looked like we were going to all be going home together, and it was literally 2 days before he was released from the hospital. His body began to reject my marrow. He went into a coma and then passed shortly after. So the typical sadness that a family goes through, we felt it.
Yeah.
And we all felt it. It was devastating. It was a tragic event, you know, for my parents to lose a son, for me to lose a brother, but it was more than sadness. I was mad as hell. I was angry, and then I also had another symptom called guilt, and I left that hospital thinking I was the one that killed my brother, and that anger and that guilt was buried inside of me in a trap box where, you know, I just lived with those wounds and that anger and that guilt. As I explained in the book in chapter 3, all of the anger and all of the guilt came out every time I was in a competitive environment, it's the guilt and anger that would respond to any kind of friction. And so it began to take its toll not only on my athletic career, but in all walks of life. It was taking control of me. And the reason I would respond that way is because in 1981 I didn't have any control over what happened. And it was like, I never said it to myself, but I thought it forever. Is I don't want to be in a situation where someone else is going to control the destiny. And I hated that situation. I also knew I needed to heal. And part of this book is started out as a dedication to my father, but this book for me is also a way for me to not only heal, but to help others heal that are going through the same pain. For sure.
Okay. So a lot of that came out in competition, and somewhere along the line you got a mentor. You're one of your first mentors. Helped you get in the zone and reach your peak performance. That mentorship was part of that the beginning of that 9-step process where you can actually see it on the field, and you can see it professionally, where you started to change and really grow and taking control of that, right?
It's pretty crazy, actually. If you look at my career over 15 seasons in Major League Baseball, the first half of my career looks drastically different than my second half of my career. And a big reason was the guy by the name of Todd Doerflein, famous sports psychologist. I actually spent 12 hours with him between 1993 and 1994.
Oh, wow.
So it was after 2 world championship teams. When I went home in the winter of 1993, I just knew this anger and this guilt, I was carrying it everywhere. And I knew that I needed help, and he set some time aside for me. We spent 12 hours nonstop. And we laughed and we cried and we dug deep. And then I went into a 7-day challenge where everything in life, every emotion was just going to be a challenge. And I was going to record these challenges. And Harvey left me with this that I take with me and actually teach it to my kids is, you know, physically you can hurt me. But for you to hurt me mentally, I have to let you inside. I was showing all of the emotion, all of the outburst, all of the anger, all of the guilt I was giving every time I had a confrontation. So I was losing control of my mind, right? And so from that point forward, it was all about me controlling my mind and not allowing the world to see every emotion that I was going through.
Now, your dad was a 3-time 20-game winner. And that was on 3 teams that were not playoff champions, right?
That's right.
So you grew up in Yankee Stadium. I love how you talked about even through challenges and setbacks, you could still smell the hot dogs. You know, that was pretty awesome.
Well, you know, I grew up in this place called Yankee Stadium. My father played in the mid-60s to the mid-70s. I can remember standing in the outfield grass, and the guy standing next to me would be a guy by the name of Mickey Mantle.
Wow.
Can you imagine, right?
Wow.
And today, I actually pinch myself. It was that environment that built and inspired me to dream and want to follow in my father's footsteps. And every time I went through a difficult time on pursuing that, whether it was other people's opinions, the critics, maybe I wasn't pitching good, my goals and my dreams and that environment that I grew up in and that pursuit was always bigger than the short-term circumstance or place I was going in. So there were times where, you know, if there was ever self-doubt, I just went back to how I grew up and how big the dream was. But, you know, I always tell people, it's like, you know, when you can see it, your goals and dreams, but when you can emotionally feel it. And I could emotionally feel it because literally I could smell the hot dogs in the ballpark.
What I love about the book is that even if you weren't in that environment where you grew up, you know, your feet on Yankee Stadium, and you weren't in that environment where you could vividly see it. You talked about how a lot of people go from actually not seeing it, and they have to have dreams that make their reality. You had a reality that helped you solidify your dreams, but your 9-step process is talking about how everyone, you can actually make your dreams come true.
Eugene, and we both know this, that people will see a successful story, but they don't see the pain, the suffering, the sacrifice, and everything that to help become that. But we can't forget there's validation everywhere.
Yeah.
There are people that came from maybe some of the worst neighborhoods that become some of the greatest men and women of this country that created massive success.
Yeah.
So I was lucky, I was blessed, I had an incredible environment. But if you come from a place where your environment is not incredible, you can't use that as an excuse. You got to use it as the trampoline to propel yourself out of that neighborhood, right? Yeah. So there's always a way, you know. It's like if you sometimes maybe the people that come from the greatest environments, the greatest blessings, you know, they're not hungry enough then to pursue their goals and dreams. At the end of the day, it's like, and this book wasn't about me winning all the time. It was about me massively failing. It was about going through tragedy and different moments. And because of the system and each step was a place in my life where somebody around me helped me come from that place to go to a different place, and sometimes at a higher level.
So in chapter 5, you talk about fighting the enemy and how, let's see, you were age 22, you said, right? And you had done 2 seasons with the minor league. You'd made it as close to major league as you could. You were actually accepted into the Blue Jays, but then by the, I think, fall of that year, you were dropped again. Yeah. So a lot of people would have given up at that point because you also lived in the shadow of your dad and people hating on you. And you had success, they said, oh, of course he's successful because he can't help it. But then when you would not be successful, they would criticize you. So you'd get the brunt end of both sides, right? So what was it that really helped you get past negative criticism, naysayers, people that, because all entrepreneurs understand that you're going to have naysayers in your life. So what was the thing, that edge that helped you get past that?
First of all, I had growing up and living in the shadow of a great Yankee pitcher where the city and the baseball world loved my father, and for all the right reasons. He was an extraordinary leader on the field, 3-time 20-game winner, 5-time All-Star. But he did it on losing teams, and he did it with such grace and humanity. He was an incredible person. But like when my brothers and I were growing up, it was like if we did well, it was like,
of course.
They should.
They're going to do well,
But when we didn't do well, it was, you could hear, it was like, man, what happened to these guys? Right? And I can remember that there were people would come to our home, family, friends, and almost discourage my parents for allowing us to dream as big as we were dreaming. Yeah. And it was almost like they would, I can remember there were conversations where it was like an injustice, because what if you're setting your kids up to fail? Because what if they don't, because they're not like you, and what if they don't make it? What's their fallback plan? And I believe that every successful story, doesn't matter whether it's athletics, it's business, it's entrepreneurship, families, it's about going all in. In 1989, when I got sent down for the 2nd consecutive time, it was the first time in my life I started to wonder, was the world right? Were the critics right? Were all of my friends, were they right? I wasn't like my father. This dream wasn't going to come true. And literally that night, didn't sleep and watched the sun rise. And as the sun rose, I just made a decision that I'm going to go all in. And if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail in front of the world. But if I win, I'm going to win in front of the world. But you know, Eugene, what I couldn't see was 30 days later. 30 days later, I get called back to the big leagues. I pitch Game 2 of the 1989 playoffs. I go on to play 15 years, land on 3 world championship teams. I get overpaid for 15 consecutive years. I play with some of the most incredible teammates in the world. I'm coached and inspired by Hall of Fame managers and Hall of Fame players. And I would have missed out on all of that at a time where I was vulnerable. Where I started to wonder, should I just go home? And that is the place where people quit, is where they can't see around the corner. And I couldn't see 30 days later, but what if I would have quit? I always tell people, what if I would have quit? And here's the biggest thing I would have missed out on. The mindset that dreams come true. I would have missed that. See, I would have gone through the rest of my life as like, don't dream too big. Like I had a big dream and it didn't come true.
Okay, so let's transition and talk a little bit about after MLB, after professional sports. A lot of professional athletes don't carry what took them to win in athletics to the business world. So there's a staggering statistic, something like 80% of pro football players are bankrupt within 5 years of leaving the NFL. I don't know what that statistic is. You don't know it either, you said, right?
I don't.
Yeah. But it's probably somewhere close to that for some major leaguers, right? You actually had success. You actually started, how many businesses? You said like 16, right?
We had a bunch.
Like yeah, you had a bunch.
I'll say that.
Yeah. You actually had that in common with our mutual mentor, Karen Doerflein, who you guys have seen on the vlog. She's a frequent visitor on the vlog. She had multiple businesses that were all very successful, and then 2008 hit. And you did seemingly everything right. You were well diversified. You did securities, right? You did portfolio management.
Yeah,
you do that
we had
too?
an investment fund.
Yeah, and you were highly successful at that.
We did great.
Yeah, you guys did great, and everything changed after 2008. And really it was at that point where your partner, Erica, pulled you out of it. Like, so Erica, can you share a little bit about what that brave conversation was, what you had to say to him that was actually that turning point to actually look at other options that outside of traditional business?
I can actually remember, just like it was yesterday, there were about 4 nights in a row Todd hadn't come to bed. And when he would, I would just hear him doing these heavy, deep sighs, like he just couldn't rest. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. And I remember he was in his office in the middle of the night, and he had been up and stressed, and I said, I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe we have to lose it all, but you need to come to bed, because if we don't have you, we don't have anything. And he came to bed. You know, we just kind of made a new plan. We were actually praying for other opportunities, something that could create cash flow right away. And we were blessed that something came into our life, and actually we were able to pull ourselves together. And now today we have residual income, and it's a whole different lifestyle.
That's what it's all about. You know, I grew up in a family where my parents were both very successful, but they were never home. And they weren't at my athletic games or you know, my track meets or anything like that. You know, kids don't see love as money spent, they see love as time spent. And so if you don't have time to spend with people that matter to you, what is all money worth, right? But it's great to have that ability to have both instead of having to choose one or the other. So this book is available today, and there's 2 ways that you can order this.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So you can go to toddofficial.com. We're actually doing a limited edition autograph model of it. Otherwise, you can just simply go to Amazon and order the book from there.
So both of those links will be available at the bottom here. And it's been great getting together with you guys. Great seeing you guys last night. I love seeing you guys every quarter that I can, you know. And I love that you can build a business and be around mentors that build you, and they care about your success even if they're not in your business, you know.
Well, Eugene, we appreciate it, and that's exactly what you're doing at your 6-figure mentor. Is, you know, you're spreading the word, and you're allowing people to plug in, and you're doing some incredible work. We're big fans, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you want a copy of the book, actually, I'm going to give away 3 autographed copies for the first 3 people that comment and want a copy of this. Definitely pick up this book today. It is an amazing book. I'm going to read it again right after, you know, reading it, finishing it later today. But thank you guys so much for being on the vlog, and I'll see you guys in Detroit, right?
There you go.
I'm super excited about that. All right.